Hi, this is Dave FELDBERG, Team Infinite, and I am building my bag in 2019. Now, as I explained to you, I am going to be throwing multi-brand because that's what the NG Tour is all about, is having, your choice. So, being that I'm not one brand specific, I've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out who makes the best discs from every brand, and that's what the podcast is going to be about. So, I started a little bit of the background work myself, and here's what I've been working on this winter. So, for putting, inside the circle, I had to break out my old 10 time. There's no getting around it. I had to break it out. It's what I won the world titles with and how I played so well over the years. And right away, I was making my putts again. So I really enjoy the KC AVR. It just feels good in my hand. And when you do something for so long, it just becomes, habit. After 5 years without using it, right back in the bag, putting great. So gonna stick with that KC 10 time until I find something better. One thing though that I've been using as the backup, as I mentioned, is a Myth. I really enjoy the Myth. I found that it's a good backup to my 10 time, and it allows me to have a good practice putter, and it actually hooks up a little more on hyzer when I'm putting about a 30 footer, so I like it. Now, if most of you know me, I was known for the long jump putts, the LAKEY they called it. And when I switched to Latitude, they gave me a black judge, and I was pretty good with it, but I just couldn't find that amazing long 60, 70 foot flights that I used to get all the time when I played in the years past. So I broke it out. I have a couple different ones. This is one you might remember. I called it the Fresh Maker. It's Mentos. And back to just jamming long putts again. Need to work on my 40 footer because it floats so much that I'm not used to, but man, I can really put this on long lines again, and it's fun to make those putts. Now, when it comes to throwing putters, when I played for Innova in the years past, I never threw any putters. I didn't like it. I always threw mid-range. But when I switched to Latitude, I really, really enjoyed the Cetus. And here's the one I throw. It's a pineapple Cetus. I really enjoyed it, and that's something that I'm never going to get away from. I find that this particular approach disc is still the best approach disc on the market. It is good into the wind. It is good at low ceilings. It feels good in the hand. It's got a great grip. It doesn't break into a waffle. This is 2 years old and it doesn't have any warping on the top. It's a really solid disc, and it'll probably not come out of my bag anytime soon. So medium Cetus is still a really great approach disc for me. Now, I've always wanted to throw the Discraft Zone. So the Discraft Zone is the closest to the Cetus I've ever seen. Now, I'm not sure which one came first. I think the Cetus, then the Zone, or maybe vice versa. But it's really close. And so I thought I'd give it a try. I've been throwing it around. It does fly very similar to a new Cetus, but right now I'm gonna keep it in the bag and see how I can break it in. But right now it's like a brand new Cetus to me. So what I used to dabble in a bit when I did throw putters here and there with it was I tried to throw the Rhino for like 2-finger rollers and different little sidearm approach shots. Well, I brought back out the one, that's right, Sugar Al Shack 3407. The original second best player in the world when I was out. He gave me this back in the day, and I'm gonna break it back out. I threw it, and now that I'm comfortable throwing putters and I've got a good release from throwing the Cetus for so many years, I notice this is pretty stable too. It's like that straight, stable, kind of Innova flight where it just holds the line, and I really enjoy that. So I think that I'll be adding this back to my bag, and thanks Al for keeping it alive. Now, one other disc from Latitude 64 that I'm not going to take out of my bag that I found useful is called the Spike. Most people don't know about the Spike. Even when I played for Latitude, people hadn't heard the Spike when I told them. They'd be like, the Spike? Which one's that? It's probably because the name doesn't match the flight. When you think Spike, you think Spike hyzer, right? But this is not a Spike hyzer disc. This is the anti-Cetus, I call it. Whatever my Cetus or now my Zone can do, this does the opposite. So I throw it up with hyzer and it completely moves to the right. This is probably the most understable disc I have, and I like that. With disc golf nowadays with so many sidearm type shots needed, there's a lot of sharp right turns that you have to make after maybe 70, 80, 90 feet up the fairway. And when using my other turnover disc, I find that turn very difficult. But with this Spike, it'll go up and I can make it turn literally 90 degrees to the right. So I think that if you're interested in a disc that's going to be good for turnovers, try the Spike, because this is going to be in my bag for years to come. All right, now, again, mid-ranges are difficult because most people prefer a mid-range that's broken in. So many of you don't know, but when I quit the Innova team back in 2011, I think it was, I zipped up my bag and put it in the closet. because I never knew what was going to happen in the future. So I was able to go back and pull out discs like this 10-time, 11-time rock. Not even sure which one it is, it's so broken in. But I have a handful of these which I can use for flip turnover shots, and I was missing that. You know, when I played with the other brands, I noticed that my mid-range kind of either would turn all the way over or it would turn flex. This still has that great rock, famous rock flight where you can make it hold an angle and just keep gliding forward. So love having this back in my bag. Now the next stability up for me in this range is going to be the barred. I'm going to keep this. This is what they call a BT barred. I don't have a stamp on it anymore. It's kind of the ones that were hard to come by. They made them in Europe and people had to order them and stuff like that. But it is a really brand new, it's really overstable. And now that I've got it broken in, you can see Tim Maribel gave it to me. But now that I got it broken in, it is unbelievable. I can make it flip to flat. It'll still hold a headwind with hyzer, but it'll do a flex shot. I find this to be a really useful disc. I mean, it has a waffle effect, so I don't really care for that because I hate waffling. But I do like the flight of this disc, and I'll probably keep it in my bag as long as it doesn't waffle all the way out. Next in line, and something I've been messing with, is a Comet. I know that you're thinking to yourself, a Comet? FELDBERG throwing a Comet? That doesn't even sound right. But the real truth of it is that my first mid-range was a Comet. Like I told you, I went to the store and bought a disc. They had given me a Barracuda. I didn't know anything about discs, and I was into Fish and Grateful Dead. And they had a Grateful Dead Comet. So of course that sucked me in and I bought it. And that was my first mid-range, and then once I became a real tournament player, I got moved over to the rocks and et cetera, et cetera. So I thought I'd give it a flight again, and when I threw it, man, is it predictable. I see why Michael Johansson still throws it. I see its uses. And I feel that I can find a place for this. It's like an extended version of that spike that I showed you. And the next in line for me is just a standard KC Glow Rock. It's from 2015. I like the stamp. Cynthia gave it to me. It was a gift to her. It's the stamp from my first club. This is the first tournament I played in, was ran by the Dogs of Disc. My first putter was this stamp. And this is a flat top, really nice Glow Rock from 2015. And it flips to flat, goes straight. It's not too overstable. I like it. It's good for straight to flat. Now comes the overstable mid-range in my bag. I have a standard X-Out KC Rock that I have for years. I think feels like it's a 11-time, maybe a 10-time. It's really overstable. I like it. It flies straight to stable, but not extreme. Moving up the line is my Buzz OS. That's right, Buzz OS. That's right, I'm saying it, Buzz OS. I tried it. You know what? Buzz has got this reputation of being an understable disc, but Buzz OS, not understable. It's probably one level up from a stable rock. It's something I can throw. It hooks up really hard. It flies the distance of a good mid-range. And I think I'll find a place for this. I really do enjoy the way this flies. Now, 2 mid-ranges left. The Raw from my new sponsor, Infinite Disc. This is one of the Infinite Discs that I know I'm gonna fit into my bag. It is your gator, your go-to headwind. I gotta get to the left. I can't hyzer OB. I need to make it happen no matter what the situation is. This will be my disc. I'll be able to rip on it. I'll probably throw many variations of the plastics, and I like the Raw, and it's definitely part of my bag in 2019. Another addition to the bag, like I said, we're working with all brands, is the Gateway. He sent me a couple. One of the ones that I tested that I liked right away is called the Diamond Prophecy. That's right, Diamond Prophecy, 179. And it's red. It's got a nice sharp feel. It almost feels like a rock, but it's got like a kind of more of a square face right here when you look at it than a rock, but it's got that rock underside. It's got the rock grip, the rock diameter. And I noticed that when I threw it, it was overstable, but it flew a tighter line, let's call it. When it went left, it didn't sweep left, it kind of just dropped left. And when I turned it, it didn't glide out right, it kind of dropped right. So I feel like this is a really controllable mid-range. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't me, so you know, I mentioned I'll be working with other throwers throughout the year, and I had one of my 900 level throwers test this disc for me because I've had it for about 3 weeks. And first throw, he threw it on a soft hyzer and almost made an ace. So, and he was a rock thrower. So I feel that if you're a rock thrower or a mid-range, you know, overstable mid-range guy or girl, I think that you're really gonna enjoy the Diamond Prophecy. So give that a shot. I know that, you know, it isn't part of the main brands, but that's what I'm trying to say. You don't know what's good until you try it. All right, Obviously, next in line would be my fairway drivers. And this is a part, you know, that I struggled with making the change. Fairway drivers are something that you've had for a long time and you broke in and you really enjoy. And, you know, it wasn't until just this year that I had a couple for the Trilogy brand that I was starting to really like. You know, it took me years, and now, you know, so you'll see I kept a couple of those. I brought back some oldies and I got some new ones. So let's start with the oldies. If you remember me or followed my career, I was known for these Eagles. Champion X Eagles, but they're broken in. These are still, you know, I broke them out. I haven't used them in years. They're still just as good. I can throw it with hyzer. It flips up to flat. It flies really tight lines that I can control under 350. So here's my understable one, Dancing Bear, and the other one is the old Huck Lab Tri-Fly. And both of these fly really good for me, and I will continue to keep them in my bag for years to come. You know, I'm glad to have them back. Also in that bag from years ago was a 9-time T-Bird. And the reason I put this back in is I still hadn't found a disc in the Trilogy lineup that I had broken into this point. You know, I could buy one like a Fury or get a Fury out of the box that flipped, but I didn't like that. I wanted something that used to be stable, but that's broken into Fury level. And with the quality of the Latitude product, I never got there. So when I broke back this out, I was able to let it go with hyzer, and it flips up and does all kinds of turnovers, and man, it's nice to have that kind of shot back in my bag. I missed it. You know, I could do it with Trilogy stuff when I had the right conditions, but this does it every time. And, you know, as I've told people in the past, nothing to do with brand. It has to do with how long you've broken in it. You want to start with stability and break into understability. And like I said, with the Trilogy plastic, it takes a long time with the quality. Additionally, I forgot to mention, I have one more Eagle. He was famous. He won me multiple NT playoffs. They called him Obama. This is my stable Fairway Eagle X. I really enjoy this one. People love him. Now from Latitude, what I kept in the bag is I can't get away from the Triple X. This is still the same Triple X, if you follow me, that I've been carrying since the first disc they sent me. It really flies well. I'm probably still going to use it for under 300 foot to 320 hyzers, skip shots, sidearms. You know, I would say I lean on this disc quite a bit, and you know, even though those Eagles are flying good for me, they're good for straight shots for me. This is still my stable Speed 7 go-to disc, Triple X. Now, striker. Now, people would say, well, why is he still carrying a striker if he's got a T-Bird and an Eagle? Why does he need one of these? Well, I've noticed that one of the issues I found is that when I threw the striker when I played for Trilogy, that it always went a little too far for the T-Bird Eagle type shot that I was looking for. So now I have those for the controllable 350, 340, but this bad boy is really good T-Bird flight at like 380 for me. So I find that this is a really good disc that when I look at the shot, I say, hey, that's a T-Bird Eagle shot, but I don't have it doesn't seem to want to get there. This is what I'll upgrade to, and it gives me a little more distance on that same flight. These really good old stiff strikers. Now, some new additions to the bag in this range. As I, you know, love the Infinite Slab, I found that this is kind of in the Excalibur-ish range, and that I really enjoy throwing this. It's a little slower than that, but it's stable. It's kind of Triple X-ish, but it's got a little more distance and speed, so I'll keep this around because I know I'm going to need it on windy days, and I love throwing skip shots. Also new to the bag, and I just testing it, is this Illusion. You can see I kind of threw it a lot. I'm kind of liking it. It's a Gateway Illusion. I know it's not from the Big Five, as we call them, but it's got a nice pop to it. It's really tight. I think he's doing really good things here. I found that it flipped up to flat, and it cooks. I mean, I don't know what speed. He says it's a speed 12, but it's pretty fast. So I would think that, you know, I'm going to use this in conditions where I liked it over water. I don't know why, but I felt comfortable throwing it over water, big hyzer. So this will make it in my bag, and I'll keep testing it as the year goes. Finally, the newest addition kind of disc in my bag in this category to me. I know it says distance driver, but I can't throw it anywhere. All right, it's called the Machete, and I've played with a lot of discs in my career, a lot. And I have never seen anything like this thing. I mean, this thing goes so hard left. It's kind of like people who talked about those old Firebirds or different discs that really went left. It does that, but it actually doesn't just die. I felt like those old flat top Firebirds just kind of went out and they would skip a little low maybe, or they'd die. They didn't have a lot of speed. This thing moves. This thing I can throw, you know, over 300 feet easily, and it is so overstable. I couldn't believe it. I've even tried flexing it a couple times just because I thought, hey, I can flex this. And I still haven't even got it over to flex. I can get it to like, whoop, flat, no. So I think that this is a great addition, and anybody who's going to be playing in the wind or from Texas or any place like that where you need a good wind driver, I'd give this Machete a try. I think it's a pretty good disc. Next in the lineup is my rollers. I haven't worked much on rollers this winter. I'm known to be a roller guy, but I got so many discs to test, and the courses I'm playing don't have rollers. I'm playing in IDGC, I'm playing in Macon at this one course, I'm playing here in Milledgeville. Not too many rollers to practice, ground's kind of chunky, it's winter time, a lot of sloppy mud everywhere, but keeping the Havoc. I used to love this Gold Line Havoc. It's still a good distance roller. I can make it flip, and for now, this is what I'm going to use for my long distance rollers. It works good, and I'm going to keep it in the bag. But I slipped back in a Roadrunner. Roadrunner is just like that Havoc for me, but doesn't quite go as far. I had lost my Fury at the end of my Latitude, contract, so I didn't have a Fury in the bag. And so now I got the Roadrunner back, and now I got 2 distance rollers, and hopefully when the sun comes out, I can start practicing my rollers again. All right, the final part of my testing right now is distance drivers. And if you're sitting here looking at this right now and saying, in the bag, what bag carries all these discs? Don't worry, I'm just testing right now. I'll get these reduced down. I'm carrying multiples of Cert 1s, but these are the base that I'm starting with right now. And I'm gonna be adding some other brands, that are sponsoring the tour. You'll see those in the next review, but I just couldn't review hundreds right now. So I'll bring, next month I'll bring in a couple more brands, add a couple more discs, and we'll keep working on it, month by month. But put an Excalibur back in the bag. It's like I said, it's a little fast for the slab type shot, but I like it. It's a good wind. When I'm throwing over a tree line, I kind of like to throw this disc. I can get more hand under it. It's got a deeper dish, so I can really grip it. So I can really pop on it when I'm trying to throw it high in the air. And I miss, some people used to do tie-dyes for me. This one's Kiss My Ace, which I thought was kind of cool. People, Stewie. So I love this one. I had to put it back in the bag. Now, I started messing around with, like I said, as you can see, some Discraft stuff because they're, going to be part of the Next Generation Tour, and they sent me a bag of stuff. And this heat, I wanted to try it because I play against Michael Johansson now that I live here in the South, and he uses this disc on like every type of turnover shot there is. And so I went out and tested it, and now I know why he looks for the Ace Race heats, because they're really flippy. This particular heat is not that flippy. This is a really good distance driver, turns a little bit, flexes back, and I think that this is a pretty good distance disc. I know that it says it's only like a speed 9, but it's one of those discs that is really fast, and that's why I kept it in this category. I wouldn't use it as a speed 9 driver. It really rips. Next in line that I've been messing with is the Crank. I found this to be the best distance disc at Discraft that I've touched. I found that I could flex it, it turned a little bit, it went the distance, and I really enjoyed its flight. I think that this will probably go into my bag right away, in tournament play, and I can see myself using this in many different situations, especially when I'm going to places like Vibram in Vermont with a lot of wooded flex shots coming up. I can see this being a lot of use. Continuing on that Discraft line, I had to try the Force because it's like the next step up for the Crank, and I found that it was very Destroyer Giant-ish, Westside Giant. It was pretty good. I found that, I'm using it right now. It's good in the wind. I don't have much experience with it yet. I've only played a couple rounds with it, but I'm trying to find a place for it. I know that, Paul McBeth put his name on it and everybody's loving it, but I'll see where it fits in my bag, but I really like the Crank. Now, the other Discraft distance driver that I got was the Big Z Discraft Thrasher, which I'm not sure what plastic this is, but Big Z is what it's called. It's a non-see-through. This is a really good distance turnover disc. I was able to throw this right away 400 feet and still make it sky roll. So I really like this. I was able to throw it on a tailwind and then make it roll up and just go forever on that line without coming back. And then I was able to throw it in regular wind and just dip it right over to a roller, and it held a nice line. It wasn't flippy. So I think this is going to be a useful disc for all players, and I think for me especially, I'm going to use it for rolling and big turnovers. Now when it comes to Latitude 64 and Trilogy for the distance, you're expecting probably to see a Gladiator in my bag. I don't have one. I found that you'll see later on what I replaced it with, but I found like the other discs like the Force and Crank can do that job. But I did still keep 2 of these Ballista Pros. One of the Next Generation Tour, which is kind of like a star plastic gold line type thing. I really like this one. I was using it all year. Could be that I'm just used to it. Could be that, that it was a great run of ballistas, but I like this one. It's good for flip to flat and distance, and I don't mind, you know, letting it rip. Now this is the prototype from the Ballista Pro that they sent me, the Ballista Pro Opto X, which was the fundraiser disc that I had my name on. This is the prototype blue one. I like this. It's really stiff. It's the first heartbeat of America, we called it. Latitude, driver, distance. It has a nice heartbeat, and it really skips a lot. I like to use this when I want something, a distance. Say I want to throw a 400-foot shot that goes around a corner. I'll use this because when it hits the ground, it's like ice. This really jumps. Now, as I mentioned, we're working with all the brands. Here's an MVP Mayhem. You know, I don't know what the speed is on this disc, but I think it's around a speed 13 or higher. And I threw this in with a tailwind or no wind. This thing cooks. It went just as far as any destroyer I threw and 5 feet past the ballistas I threw. So I was really impressed with its distance and its flight. Throwing into a headwind, it was, you know, it turned a little bit. So it's not, you know, my best headwind disc, but it could be a long distance roller and a long distance turnover. And I'm really keen to try the MVP in the rolling, because with the gyroscopic technology of the weight on the rim, it should cause the disc to roll a little longer, and any extra distance on the ground I can get at this age, I'd love to have. So I'm gonna try to incorporate this as my long distance, like cut roller or big turnover disc. Now, to Innova, let's go to the Shrike. I've tried to add the Shrike, you know, but when I quit the team, there was no Shrike. And now all I see on the internet is Shrike Life, Shrike Life. All these kids posting and all this stuff. And I see how for the regular player it's pretty good. But at my arm speed, I found that it turned over. Now I was able to get, you know, in certain wind conditions or no wind, to throw it with a lot of hyzer and get it to go a long way. So I could see how it could be good in tunnels with no wind or in a tailwind, big distance shot. I'm keeping it in the bag because I'm trying to still work it out. I like the feel of it, and you know, there can't be this much hype on a disc that isn't good. I'll tell you that. Now, from Infinite, I'm going to keep this Faro. This is the Glow C line. It's the pop top metal flake Glow C line. It's a little different than the other Faros because it's that heartbeat Faro. I find this is going to be right up the alley, and it's going to fit into, as you can see, my 5 destroyer lineup. And I've always done this in the past. I make it similar to mid-ranges or putters, where I have my broken in Star Eco Destroyer, which is my flip to flat little turn, and it keeps holding the turn. Then I have my flip to flat that goes drifting but doesn't turn. And then I have my flip to flat that just holds flat, then hyzers out. And then I got my doesn't flip to flat version. And I'd say that my Faro falls right in between the two at the end. So it's flip to flat, it'll hold hyzer, it'll also flatten up, but it doesn't turn. And so those are my 5 destroyers that I'm carrying right now. And as you look at it, holy cow, how am I gonna get all of those into this cart? It's not gonna happen. So what I've been doing is taking out partial bags, taking out half the disc and playing around with it and seeing which ones I feel the most comfortable with, and then pulling the ones that I don't and replacing them with new ones. But in general, I'm going to be building a bag, and every month or 2, I will come back on here and update you on where I'm at. I won't go through every disc and bore you because I know this is a long video. But what I'll do is say, hey, I got rid of this and that, and now I have this or that. So keep tuning in on building the bag. It should take me until Jonesboro. That'll be the first event you see me on. Mid-April, Jonesboro Pro Tour in Arkansas. By then, I'll have the bag ready to go, and we'll do an in the bag right before then, and you can see what I'm gonna play with. Until then, this is Dave FELDBERG, Team Infinite Disc, building your bag.